In my career, I've tried to never back management into a corner. But there have been, as I have gained popularity, concessions companies have been willing to make if I want certain time off or a certain number of people on a staff. And the more popular I've become, generally in any business, the more leverage you have. And, companies will give me certain things. I don't ask for a ton. I'm not real high maintenance on this stuff. And it's understood in a lot of entertainment businesses. And let's be honest, I'm not analogous to Tom Cruise, but when Top Gun makes $1.4 billion, there's concessions made. LeBron James, Tom Brady, there are concessions made. But in order to get those in any industry, you've got to deliver on the other end. This is what's interesting. So Aaron Rodgers wants concessions by the Green Bay Packers. He listed 5 offensive players, only one is elite, that he wants the Packers to bring back if he'll return. Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis, Robert Tonyan, the tight end, are not dynamic players. They're unrestricted free agents. So the Packers will have to pay more than they're worth to retain them. So the takeaway is, well, you get Aaron Rodgers. So I went back with my staff and I said, what is the payoff for Aaron? Let's go to Aaron Rodgers' last 10 what we would call big games. And we tried to, as a staff, be very fair. He had 5 this year. The play-in game with the Lions, Christmas Day at Miami, that Philadelphia game that was a standalone game, the Cowboy game at Lambeau, and I think it was a Sunday night game against the Buffalo Bills. Those were the 5 big games. Now, he also lost to the Vikings in the opener. You could say the season opener is a big game, but I don't really count that as a big game. That would benefit my argument, but I didn't do that. So in those games, he had 2 wins and 3 losses. Then we went the previous year, and we counted the big games. The division round Niners game he lost, the Niner game that he won during the regular season and played very well. And there was a Rams game, week 12, that was, billed as the big game on TV for Fox that he eventually won. We went to the previous year, and the 2 games that felt big were the NFC Championship and that game against Brady down in Tampa. It was the first time they'd met. Brady is a Buck. And so we went and we billed those as the 10 biggest games. 8 regular season, 2 playoff games, and the play-in game for Detroit we think classifies. So Aaron wants all sorts of concessions. He wants 5, 4 of which are mediocre, offensive players to return. Okay. So what am I getting for that? Tom Cruise concessions, Top Gun makes $1.4 billion. LeBron for years concessions. You end up in the finals. Miami made a lot of concessions, got to the finals 4 straight years. So Aaron wants these concessions. Let's go to his last 3 years, what we classify as the 10 big games, and here's what you get. He's 4-6, 16 touchdowns, 7 picks, averages 230 yards. Those are Matt Ryan numbers. Those aren't close to Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert. They're not close. They're not close to the last 5 good games for Trevor Lawrence. Aaron wants these concessions. He's not delivering championship-level football. One of the reasons he's not as committed in the offseason. Other reasons he's not willing to play with new teammates, work out with them in the offseason. But we thought this was incredibly fair. We went back as a staff and picked the 10 big games. I'm talking not 1 o'clock windows mostly. We're talking against Brady, Niners, playoffs, Christmas Miami. By the way, trailed big in that until Tua started throwing the picks. Tua, who had a concussion late in the first half. So if you're going to ask for concessions, you got to deliver ratings, box office, finals appearances. Aaron no longer is. 4-6 last 10 games, 16 TDs, 7 picks, 230 yards a game. That's not close to the top 6 quarterbacks in this league. So Jim Harbaugh has been interviewed now on multiple occasions by the NCAA. They're saying there are infractions they want to investigate. They call them incidents. So Harbaugh says he doesn't recall the incident and is refusing to acknowledge to investigators that he lied. The story is there have been multiple meetings with the NCAA. An admission that he lied would likely be a multiple game suspension. And this is really my problem with the NCAA. What the NCAA should be in the business of is finding programs that are habitually deceitful, that are consistently deceptive. Harbaugh, according to the story, bought a player a burger in 2021. Now, time out. The IRS should be auditing people like Enron or Wells Fargo, where there's a pattern of deception, not a plumber who wrote off a trip to Vegas for a plumbing convention and probably ate 3 meals with buddies and not people in the plumbing industry. Come on, NCAA. Jim Harbaugh doesn't cheat. My rule on this stuff is on an annual basis, because of the depth of the NCAA rule book, it's confounding and confusing. The coaches should get annual mulligans. You buy a kid a sandwich. You give them a ride to the airport. That's not what the NCAA is in the business of. Like the IRS, they're in the business of Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss buying players. Really, you think Jim Harbaugh is your biggest issue? Come on now. That's what you're concerned about? A hamburger in Ann Arbor? New rule. Every coach gets an annual mulligan. You stop off at Subway, kid's hungry, he's on the way to the airport. It's the day before the Thanksgiving weekend starts. Come on, NCAA. Anytime you have one element in a business that becomes overwhelmingly crucial to the success of that business gets predictable. I'll give you an example. Cable television, political cable television shows, Fox, MSNBC. The thing that gets ratings on both networks consistently is outrage. So it's fairly predictable that on both networks, all top shows are selling some level of outrage. It's predictable because it delivers ratings. The truth doesn't. All strong opinions don't. Outrage sells on cable television. And so it usually leads the most popular shows. Now, many of the times on both networks, it's not particularly outrageous to me, but if a host feels or can sell or promote outrage, it works. Nightly, weekly, monthly, annually. Some hosts clearly better than others. So in the NFL, as the league, due to safety precautions, has made the quarterback basically hit-free, has opened up the field for receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends to not get hit, your skill players feel much more comfortable going over the middle, going downfield, and it's become a very much an offensive-leaning league. We've talked about this. Of the 8 teams left, 7 have offensive coaches. And 1, Sean McDermott, just has Superman at quarterback. They would not be a playoff team, certainly not a winning playoff team, if they had an average quarterback. By the way, the Giants have an average quarterback. So do we believe the Niners. Offensive coaches, they win playoff games. So this year in my NFL predictions, I did something I'd never done before. I got 3 divisions, 1 through 4 correct. In the AFC East, I had the Bills, the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets in order. In the NFC, I had the NFC East in perfect order. Philly, Dallas, Giants, Washington. And the NFC North in perfect order. Minnesota, Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago. There's an argument to be made that I also got a fourth, half the league right in the NFC South because I had Tampa winning and then 3 non-playoff teams. But since they all tied, there's no real order to that. But 3.5 perfectly. Why? It's the most I've ever done. Why? Because the league's getting more predictable. And I think what you're going to see, the best quarterback, one, is all that's left in every AFC division. Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence. I think the AFC for the next 6 to 8 years, barring a coach being fired or retiring, Andy Reid, I'm told, may retire within the next couple of years. I think you're going to see an AFC that is incredibly predictable. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, rinse and repeat. Now, if Andy Reid retires, they hire the wrong coach, different ballgame. But that doesn't mean on a week-to-week, game-to-game basis, it's easier to predict the winners. But as the league has become so overwhelmingly quarterback-centric, the AFC is now a layup. I can tell you right now, I like all 4 of those quarterbacks next year in the AFC. NFC's different. You've got overachievers at quarterback. So the quality of the defense, the quality of the weapons, the quality of the coaching matters much more in the NFC. I mean, Brian Daboll is taking a really mid-level offense. They do have a good running back and left tackle. Receiving core is below average. O-line's bottom quarter of the league. But I think, I looked at my predictions this year on divisions. Outside of the Rams falling apart on the offensive line, did not predict that. And the Russell Wilson disaster, I totally whiffed on that. Football's getting easier to predict annually. In fact, the team I predicted would be the most improved, we got that right. Minnesota Vikings. They lost all those one-possession games. I said they're going to win a majority of, not lose, those one-possession games with an offensive coach. Again, any business where one element, quarterback, drives success or productivity becomes a significantly easier business to predict outcomes.